Hey there, friends and enemies, JoPa here again, and today I've got another Remnant to the Dark Horizon build for you guys, combining the Warden and the Summoner this time for what I like to affectionately call an air raid build. Now this one is really focused on obviously summoning allies. You're going to have pretty much permanent uptime to max stacks of bulwark because of how many summons you'll have, and I'll explain that in a little bit. Now the DPS isn't insane with this one, but it is very easy to stay alive, and you can get some nice little burst damage as well if you handle things correctly. So starting off, I am going to have the Summoner as my prime archetype. This is so I can do extra damage. I don't need the shield, so that's why I'm not rocking the Warden as my prime, but it works either way if you really want to. I just feel like you're not going to do nearly enough damage. Then we've got the Minion Flyer skill. This one is really nice because you can sacrifice these pretty quickly in order to send out an explosion to your enemies and then resummon them very quickly. And the reason you don't have to worry about these staying alive, I'll explain in a little bit, because normally with a build like this, you have to make sure your summons are alive in order to keep your stacks of bulwark, but not with this build. Then we've got the combat drone. Again, I don't need any healing or shield with this build, so that's why I'm going in that direction. Then as far as the rest of the build goes, I am riding the Lido Mark II helmet, full armor set actually, along with the shielded heart. Now, I actually don't use this a ton in the gameplay, but it just provides a nice little shield. Plus, I get a bonus whenever I use it from the handler or from the Warden archetype, so that's very, very nice. Now, I am rocking a Black Maul with the Space Crabs. Now, the Space Crabs shoot out 5 of these different crabs, and each one of them seems to count for a summon on the field. So as long as you shoot one of these out, you'll have max stacks of bulwark all the time. That's what allows you to sacrifice your summons if you'd like to. Spellweaver is massive for this. Then we've got Mirage with Reinvigorate. This is in case you want to add some exposed to the enemies, especially against bosses. And finally, we've got the Tech 22 with the Flying Bomb Trap. This is to add Corroded to whatever enemies you want to. It's very nice. And then Bandit is going to give you a lot of ammo if you need it. As far as the Amulet Neckbone Necklace, this is going to reduce the status effect damage applied, and that's going to be permanent based on something I'll show you in a second. And because you have that permanent status damage, you are going to get this 25% damage buff at all times. Atonement Fold, this is how you're going to self-inflict bleeding. This also is very important to have on your flyers for some bonus damage as well. Then we got Soul Shard, so increases all damage dealt by 5% for each active summon. Again, this is really good because you're going to pretty much always have that max 15 at all times. A stack of bulwark for each active summon with the Soul Guard. Again, very, very nice. And then Soul Link, so you'll get some lifesteal with your summons as well. Then as far as the traits that I'm running, I have Fortify, Strongback, Kinship, Spirit, Expertise, Blood Bond, which is very important, Rugged, Barkskin, and then Leech. All of those are really nice to have, especially Blood Bond is really, really good, and then Rugged as well. Now, moving on, I'm going to talk about the fragments just a little bit, the prisms, because this is going to be pretty flexible. There's nothing in here that's like a must-have necessarily. Mod damage is very nice. Skill damage can be super helpful. Skill cooldown can be really nice based on the fact that you're going to be exploding your flyers a little bit more often, but again, it's kind of not super useful because of the Warden doesn't get a ton of benefit from that. You can do crit focused if you want for your fragments. There's a lot of different options, and so if you have a prism that's already kind of built out, you can run with whatever you like for this build because you really don't have to mess around with it too much. Gameplay loop is very simple. As soon as you load in, you're gonna summon your flyers as well as your combat drone, and then you're going to proceed through and just kind of destroy everything. It's very easy to kill even on Apocalypse difficulty, the basic enemies as well as some of the more tankier enemies aside from the bosses. The one downside to this build really is that certain bosses don't seem to activate the bomb traps all that often. So you could swap this out for the Nebula instead if you would like. But I just wanted to mix it up. I use the Nebula a lot already. So just be aware that certain bosses are not really going to proc the bomb traps as much as you would like. Same thing with the melee weapon. The Mirage, you're not going to really be able to hit every single boss in the game. And the Space Crabs also will not be doing a ton of damage to flying enemies. But just keep in mind that a lot of times you want them to be alive and not necessarily have to worry about them doing damage because they are giving you extra bulwark. So that's very, very nice. Now, other things to keep in mind with this build that I think you should be aware of. One, survivability is great. I had a round where I was doing a 7-round run of the boss rush mode, and my ally died 10 times, used up all of my relics, and we were still able to get it done because I was able to revive him. Now, I didn't show the gameplay for that because it was kind of buns because he kept dying. It kept messing up my rotation, but it was pretty funny to watch because I was not using my shield on my shielded heart at all, and meanwhile I'm having to revive them over and over and over again, and that's where all of my relics went. So it's one of those builds that, again, I prioritize survivability, especially if I'm playing co-op, just because I want to make sure that I'm not throwing and costing my ally, making them res me, costing them relic uses and all that kind of good stuff. So while I might not be min-maxing with my damage, the ability to stay alive and just defeat every boss that you run into is very nice, especially if you're progressing through the gauntlet mode of the boss rush, and so you're progressively getting harder, and dying is a bigger deal because you lose more of your progress. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe as always. My name is JoPa. Have a good one. I'll catch you all later.
Good job!